Today, I'd like to talk about rejection sensitivity and ADHD. Rejection sensitivity is defined as the tendency to anxiously expect, readily perceive, and intensely react to rejection. Now, this is something that isn't exclusive to ADHD, but it is very common to anyone with ADHD, and this is probably due to our problems with emotional regulation, like I mentioned in the previous video. People with ADHD tend to suffer a lot more negative feedback over the neurotypical folks. This can be from their guardians, their friends, their teachers, family members, anyone in their lives, basically. If you consider the school environment, a person with ADHD might find it harder to sit still, be quiet, focus on their work. They might get readily distracted. It'll take them longer to copy stuff off the board if they're having to do that. And, this makes it harder for them to do their work. They will frequently be told off, told to sit in the hall, sent to the principal's office, and all that sort of thing because they're distracting everyone else and they're seen as not focusing on what they should be doing. In fact, recently I've been reading a book called ADHD and US, and it quotes Dr. William Dodson, stating that by the age of 12, children with ADHD receive an estimated 20,000 more negative messages than a neurotypical child. So all this negative feedback through the formative years can indeed make one more sensitive to any feedback, feeling critique when in fact there's no criticism there. Now, it's actually quite common for people with ADHD to get poorer grades for a variety of different reasons, but mine were generally good, even though I often had to work through lunch or sit in the hall to get the work done. The kicker for me, though, was on the report cards, I always got a low effort grade. I mostly got A's or B's for my achievements, or 1s and 2s as it was then, but my effort was always this 3 or 4, and I personally felt I was trying so hard. I really did. But no matter what I did, I couldn't please my teachers because I wasn't that sort of sit down, shut up, copy off the board kind of kid. All of my report cards complained about my attention and the fact that I really only focused when I was interested in the topic. They all said that I wasn't trying and I needed to do better. So if you combine this additional critique with the normal critique kids get and the problems with emotional regulation that folks with ADHD suffer, you can see the potential for some strong feelings of negativity. Folks with ADHD then become really sensitive to critique or any other form of rejection, and it can even make us stagnate or be fearful to even try doing something. And over time, this can get to a point where if something isn't worded exactly right, it can just set us off. I actually remember when my passion for art was completely destroyed in the second form when I did my most accurate drawing ever. I was copying this toy train that I'd brought in down onto a piece of paper, and I had every intricate little bit of detail on there. I had never been so proud of a drawing that I'd done or put that much effort into a drawing, and my teacher basically turned around and told me I hadn't done it big enough and I had to do the whole thing again, otherwise I'd get a bad mark. And you know what? I took the bad mark and I never really drew again past little doodles on a pad of paper whilst I was thinking about something else. And even now, I sometimes feel like my wife is having a go at me or telling me I'm not good enough when she isn't. This rejection sensitivity is so ingrained in me from years of rejection combined with almost 40 years of going undiagnosed that I can't escape it. Though this is kind of odd as well though, because I'm generally quite thick-skinned. Insults and the like never really affect me. When I used to write music, I wanted critique because I wanted to get better. If it was constructive, I tried to take it on board, and if the person just seemed to be trolling or offensive, then I could quite easily ignore it. There were times that, I reacted poorly, but in general, there wasn't these issues there with the emotional regulation. But perhaps the difference there is that I asked for it, and I was fully prepared of the responses that I was going to get. Yeah, on the other side, and this probably sounds quite silly, but someone can read a message on WhatsApp and not respond, or even worse, I can post a message into one of the WhatsApp groups and no one will respond to it, and I'll wonder what I've done wrong. I will feel like no one in this group likes me, and why am I even here, and should I even bother talking at all, and But there are plenty of other things it could be. I mean, most likely the person has read it, intended to respond, but got distracted by something else and, never come back to it. It's one of those things. You're busy in your day, you get a message in the afternoon, you've got work going on, or there's kids or whatever. It makes sense. Or it could just be that no one's actually interested in the thing that you're saying, and this isn't anything against you. I mean, if I was in a group of people and they all started talking about football, I would switch off. I wouldn't respond. It's not something I'm interested in. It's not necessarily anything against the people. It's just that this is a topic I'm going to stay out of. I can't add to this. So there are plenty of logical explanations for why someone might not respond or not respond right away. But being able to logic your way out of this situation, unfortunately, doesn't stop the doubts, the worries, and the feeling of rejection that you're actually getting. I can look back at my life and consider times when I stormed out of jobs, trashed rooms, flipped out at friends and bosses and teachers and all sorts of things like that. And a lot of the time it was over perceived sorts of rejection and poor emotional regulation in my responses. And nearly always did these end up turning into real forms of rejection. Losing friends, losing jobs, getting in trouble at home with your parents and things like that. And over time, these sorts of things can also lead to a form of decision or action paralysis. You can become so afraid of rejection and feel like that no matter what you do, you're going to be told that it's been done wrong or it's not good enough. You're just like, well, should I even bother doing it? So what can we do about the rejection sensitivity? Well, chances are you're always going to feel it, but a lot of managing it comes down to working out where you are mentally. Over the years, I've often noticed that my initial reaction to something that's making me feel emotional is often wrong, or it's too intense. If I can, I will disengage completely. I'll go for a walk, listen to some music, write all of my thoughts and feelings down, maybe in an email to the person that has created this, letting them know how I'm feeling, but don't send it. Wait until I've calmed down. Maybe give it a day. Talk to a few people who are away from the situation and ask what they think of it and see what they say. And more often than not, if I do this, I have a better result. The problem is, we're back to the emotional regulation again, or dysregulation as you might want to call it. When you're feeling things this intensely, reason can completely go out the window. And you're no longer able to disengage. So you constantly have to check in with yourself, watch yourself, navigate your emotions. If you can, have someone watch you as well and let you know when you need to disengage. But the kicker is as well, there are times when you'll have got into really good habits with this and you'll start not watching yourself so closely. You think, I've got this. And unfortunately, that's a dangerous moment. Because the second you get comfortable in this, it's kind of like a muscle. If you stop practicing, if you stop lifting weights, your muscles will get smaller. And if you stop doing anything altogether, you'll eventually atrophy. And that's the same sort of thing with a lot of these techniques for managing different parts of ADHD. You've got to constantly keep practicing them and watching yourself. The only other thing that I can suggest is trying to talk to your family and friends, and actually finding family members that will listen and stop trying to make everything about themselves. They will take the time to understand that you might see things differently to them. You might feel things a bit differently to them, and they can help you navigate some of these more troubling times. You will have to be aware, though, that a lot of people don't want to hear this sort of thing. They don't care about the detail. They don't want to hear so much about, how you're feeling and all this. It's not a common thing for people to talk about. So you have to find the right people. You will have to be aware that you will likely lose a lot of friends over the years due to this rejection sensitivity and problems with emotional regulation. You will have to become really good at genuinely apologizing to people and communicating with people, and before you react, checking in with them. Did you say this? Did you mean this? Are you saying this about me? Have I done this wrong? Before you go into that big reaction. And hopefully you'll have some good, forgiving, kind, caring friends and family who will take the time to understand you. In the future, I would love to cover off some more techniques on how to deal with rejection sensitivity, but also I'd love to hear from you in the comments as well. So if you've got any advice, tips, videos, links, or anything like that, I'd love to have a read or a watch or engage with you as well. Anyway, that's it from me. You've been watching Adult ADHD Journey.